Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match, Novak Djokovic versus Maxime Cressy, Paris Masters 2022, second round. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Novak Djokovic threw in straights, 7-6, 6-4. Obviously a matchup that brought a lot of intrigue as it was the first meeting between the lone serve-and-volleyer on tour, Maxime Cressy of the United States, who was born in Paris, from Paris, although I don't think anybody in the crowd was actually aware of that because Cressy did not get the Frenchman treatment in Paris from this crowd. Against, of course, Novak Djokovic, the greatest returner in the game. What's that going to look like? Serve and volleyer against Djokovic? Oh, okay. What's going to happen here? And it pretty much played out close to how I expected. If anything, Cressy on serve did a little bit better than I may have suspected, although it was Djokovic creating all the chances. Now, I do think the scoreline was somewhat misleading here because while Cressy was impressive on serve, he was only broken once, and ultimately his serve and volley style held up pretty well against Djokovic, all things considered. Even though that is true, it was not really a close match, not really a tough match. I don't know how you could say that Novak wasn't in full and complete control, given he won 48 of his 54 service points. That's merely 6 points lost. That's 89% service points won for Djokovic, and 2 of those points were double faults from Novak. So essentially, Cressy never won any return points. Djokovic was never under any pressure on his serve, never really at threat of being broken, and the tiebreak in the first set was 6-1, so Novak was never close to losing that one. So I don't think in good faith, despite the scoreline, you could actually say that this was a very close match. It's just Cressy holds serve a lot, and he held serve a lot. So with that in mind, I want to start by talking about the Maxime Cressy return game, even though I thought I'd probably go the other way because that's what everyone was excited to see. Cressy serve to Djokovic. The more important part of this match was the fact that Djokovic won every single service point. And obviously Novak against Cressy from the baseline is a complete and utter mismatch where Novak felt no pressure whatsoever. He was not going to miss because, again, he felt just so comfortable, so in control from the baseline. There were almost 0 ground stroke unforced errors from Djokovic. And, there was a game plan to just, get Cressy moving, apply pressure, make him hit forehands on the run. And Novak knew that he was going to be able to win the vast, vast majority of baseline rallies, which he did. Cressy's return game is broken. It's just not as good as it needs to be. Now, yes, he has a disadvantage from a skill set standpoint. The fact that he doesn't have a weapon off the ground and the fact that his movement from the baseline isn't all that good obviously puts him in a big disadvantage as far as return games are concerned. But I watched this match and I watched Maxime Cressy play all his matches, being left with the feeling that he could be better and he could do more to win return games. On serve, he comes in. He comes in off of his serve. He needs to be allergic to baseline neutrality on his return games, in the same way he is on his service games when he just comes in. He needs an approach on his return of serve, or he needs to build a weapon off the ground that is going to create him opportunities to come in. And how come there are occasions on Cressy's return games where I see that there's a chance for him to come in and he passes it up? How crazy is that? Essentially, in Cressy's return games, he couldn't get to net nearly as much as he needs to. We should be seeing return and charge from Cressy. We should be seeing Cressy charge forward at the smallest glimpses of opportunities to do so. And he doesn't. He's a serve and volleyer, but when it comes to his return games, he's a baseliner, and he is a far below average baseliner. He is an ITF level baseliner, if we're being completely honest. So it just felt like a complete mismatch in that sense. Credit to Djokovic on his second serve, because a player like Cressy is, in a ideal world for Cressy, going to find opportunities to take control on second serve return points. And he's going to be able to attack second serve returns and hopefully get to net either on the next shot or maybe in a couple shots later. But it did feel like Djokovic's second serve was so pinpoint and difficult to attack and unpredictable that it never felt like Cressy had the chance to attack Djokovic's second serve. And that's one area where I would really credit Novak. But still, I'd rather see Cressy miss returns than just play neutral off of his second serve return. Really. I mean, I would like him to have a conversation with John Isner, who has similar limitations, although Isner has a weapon in his forehand. Cressy does not, and that's a major difference between the two. Cressy should talk to John Isner about his mentality on return, and especially second serve return, where John has learned, and it took John a while. It really did. But John has learned to be allergic to baseline neutrality. And off of every second serve return, he's going to try to obliterate the ball. Cressy can't obliterate the ball, but in my opinion, he should be return and charge every time. Come in off the return, just like you do on the serve. Let's talk about the other way. Let's talk about Djokovic's return against Cressy's serve. You look at the key Djokovic return points in this match. There's a couple of common threads. First of all, Cressy double faults. Now, you're going to get that because Cressy needs to be aggressive on his second serve. Why does he need to be aggressive on his second serve? Because of his limitations from the baseline and the fact that he needs to come in. So you got 2 Cressy double faults in the first set tiebreak, and you have 1 Cressy double fault at 4-all in the second set when Djokovic broke serve. So Cressy double faults. Djokovic big returns. Where does Novak's return fit in here? Well, look, I thought he made enough great returns to constantly put pressure on Cressy. Constantly put pressure. Did he make so many great returns that I thought Novak's return of serve took over the match? No. I don't think that happened in this match, to Cressy's credit. A credit to how good a server Cressy is, how well Cressy handles that first volley even when it's low, how great Cressy's hands are when he has a look at the first volley to drop it short and finish and not give Djokovic a look at a pass. All those things Cressy did extremely, extremely well. But there were a couple of big Djokovic returns. 3-1 in the tiebreak. Novak got the return super low, got Cressy to pop up the volley and made the subsequent pass. And then at 15-40 at 4-all in the second set, on the break point, Novak hit a return, basically a return winner. Cressy got his racket on it, but really just the tip of his frame. And that is how Novak Djokovic was able to convert on the break point. The third thing is Djokovic defensive scrambles, where Cressy was in control of the point. Cressy was at net. He was playing exactly the point he wants to play, but still didn't win. In that 4-all game, where Djokovic broke, Cressy had overhead smashes on the first 3 points of the game, but Djokovic won 2 out of the 3 points. That's a killer for Cressy. The overheads, they weren't great. They were not very good overheads, but Djokovic was also displaying a lot of skill in those scrambles to turn those points around. So it was 15-30 after Cressy failed to finish 2 out of the 3 points, even though he got overheads. Then Cressy double faulted, 15-40. Then Djokovic hit this huge return, and there's the break of serve. So that was basically the match. I do want to mention Cressy's 2-racket approach before I sign off this video. If you didn't notice, Cressy is using separate tensions for his return games and his service games. And even in the tiebreak, he's switching rackets constantly to account for whether he's serving or returning. I know that this was more popular back in the 90s, back in the 80s. We've seen players do this before, but I got to say, in my tennis viewing lifetime, I haven't even seen it. I love that Cressy doesn't care. I absolutely love that he is willing to innovate in this era and that he is not afraid to try new things. Completely love it. But I just want to address this because it's so interesting. You know, when you think about it, it can only work if you're not hitting ground strokes on service games. Because if you're hitting ground strokes on service games, it's going to be a real bother that you're feeling kind of a different tension off the ground on your ground strokes on return games and service games. So it's really a non-starter for basically everyone else on tour, but for Cressy, it makes a little bit of sense. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.